Good evening, you're just in time for the top bulletin in town. NTV Tonight begins now. Ahead, another dark night in Kericho.
Tukapata wamekatakota na wako juu ya kitanda. It seems also they raped the wife and the child.
The head of the home is dead. His wife and daughter on the brink. Also tonight, the unbearable pain from the bus crash tragedy.
Roston alikufa tu na nyumba yake yote.
Mtoto wangu amekufa na watoto wote sina chochote. Poma imepaki bure.
And the bus driver's family also overcome by sorrow.
Alianza kazi ya driving kama ako na 18 years.
Also ahead, Brian Kasaine is a free man, but he has to fulfill some expectations of the court. Plus, a man at war with culture and fighting for the girl child.
Our culture has taken us actually back to poverty.
NTV Tonight with Mark Masai.
Good evening, Rafael Mbalu, our sign language interpreter, and I are glad that you could join us on NTV Tonight. Our top story, we begin with the tragic one from Kericho, where a man was hacked to death while his wife and children are fighting for their lives in hospital after they were brutally attacked in their home in Kipchimchim, Kericho County. The 5 family members were attacked as they slept in their home. NTV's Brenda Wanga reports that aside from hacking the family members, the attackers also allegedly raped the mother and her 11-year-old daughter.
They have gathered at the home of Lawrence, family, neighbors and friends brought together by a tragedy that happened last night.
Tuliachana jioni wakiwa na furaha. Unajua shida yenye ilitoka ni baada ya stima kupotea. Amka asubuhi sasa nasikia nduru.
The family of 5 had settled down for the night, oblivious to the danger that lay in wait for them in the dark.
Lakini asubuhi ya leo nilipoamka nikapata nduru. Nikawa mtu wa kwanza kukimbia kufika hapa, tukapata wamekatakota na wako juu ya kitanda.
Lawrence, aged 42, was a farmer and he had lived here with his family. His wife, a teacher at a local school.
Tumekuwa familia wa salama, hakuna jambo lolote ambao pengine kulikuwa na crisis ama nini. Walikuwa tu familia walikuwa naishi pamoja. Na ni kama tu kulikuwa tu na lengo fulani kwa sababu hakukuwa na kisasi yote. Kama kungekuwa na kisasi kungekuwa kumetokea hata mbeleni, lakini sasa hatukuwa na kitu yote.
The attackers showed no mercy to their victims. The motive of the attack remains unknown for now. The brutality, however, clear.
They cut the head deeply. The wife was also cut on the head deeply. You see, a child of almost 11 years was also cut behind. So you see, these people were just trying to wipe off this family. Number 2, as from what the doctors have said, it seems also they raped the wife and the child, who is almost 11 years.
The head of the family, Lawrence, lost the battle for his life earlier today as he received treatment. The mother and the 2 girls have since been transferred to Eldoret Referral Hospital for more specialized treatment. The incident has left residents asking the government to beef up security in the area as such cases are becoming rampant. Brenda Wanga, NTV.
At least 40 bodies of passengers who died in the Fort Tenon bus accident have been positively identified. It was an emotional day for families who lost their loved ones in the tragedy as they braved horrific sights at the Kericho County Referral Hospital mortuary to pick out their relatives from the pile of badly mutilated bodies crammed in the tiny facility. Okokusa reports.
Outside the Kericho County Referral Hospital mortuary, Flora Kamonya weeps. Flora is a younger sister of Lucas Asangasia, the 72-year-old driver of the ill-fated Homeboys bus.
Alianza kazi ya driving kama ako na 18 years, mimi nilikuwa mdogo kama niko na 7 years mpaka saa hizi.
Jane Kego, another sister of Lucas, says that her brother had a stainless career that spanned over 5 decades.
Hajawahi kufanya accident yoyote bado. Alianza kufanya kwa bus union, amekuwa akifanya juzi kwa green line ile kutoka coastline.
On the mortuary's lawn roamed men and women who have lost their loved ones in the grisly accident. Sylvester Kalio being one of them.
Nimepoteza bibi na mtoto. Mimi niliwatoa nyumbani nikijua atafika nyumbani salama. Lakini kufikia asubuhi kupiga simu nyumbani naambia hajafika. Niliwapeleka kwa gari kawaida, nikawapeleka mpaka stage, nikahakikisha wameingia kwa gari. Baadaye ndio nasikia gari haikuenda direct, ilirudi nyuma ikaokota watu wengine.
Sylvester's wife Josephine Wanjia and the couple's 2-year-old son Kigan Success were traveling to Mumias in the county of Kakamega to attend the burial ceremony of Sylvester's grandfather. In the same compound we found members of a family that suffered the highest number of casualties in the tragedy.
Nimepoteza ndugu yangu na bibi yake na watoto wawili na mtoto wa sister yangu amepotea. Jumla yote watu 5 wa familia yangu wamepotea. Tumekuja hapa jana jioni tukaona miili yetu tukashutia ndio hiyo.
Timothy Loment's brother was traveling to Ingotse village in Kakamega to attend the burial ceremony of their grandmother.
Clevis Lomen ako na miaka 4, first born wake. Alafu second ni Veronica Mnala ako na 2 years. Alafu mtoto wa sister yangu ni Telmas Imbavi ako na 1 years. Wote wako hapa ndani wamekufa.
Timothy's brother-in-law Calvin Imbavia is also mourning his daughter, who is among the 9 children who perished in the mishap.
Bibi yangu namshukuru Mungu ameponea chupuchupu. Yeye yako Eldoret Referral Hospital. Ndiye amevunjika mguu kutoka kwa kiuno. But mtoto niko na maiti ya mtoto iko hapa ndani.
Long queues of bereaved families crisscrossed the mortuary's lawn till late afternoon as body identification process dragged on. Now, according to Red Cross and the National Disaster Operations Center personnel, a total of 41 bodies have been positively identified out of the 58 who perished in the deadly crash.
Hii mochari yetu ya Kericho imejaa na tumeshindwa. Ikifika kesho itakuwa watu watakuwa inatoa harufu mbaya hata mtu angepata kwa kutini. So kama mtu wako alitravel ama unashuku kama kuna mtu alikuwa anataka kuja nyumbani, piga simu, jiulize na ama waulize ili tuweze kusaidika kupata ugumu wa kazi ishe kwetu.
By this evening, the bodies whose skins had positively identified were transferred from Kericho to the mortuaries that are near to their ancestral homes. Ukokusa, NTV.
And that's not all from this tragedy. 3 families in Bungoma, Vihiga, Kakamega and Busia counties in western Kenya are mourning their loved ones who perished in the 410 accident that claimed the lives of at least 56 people. The accident has wiped out 3 families who were on their way to attend funeral ceremonies in their rural homes.
Ingoste village, Navakolo constituency in Kakamega County was plunged into mourning after 5 members of a family died in the bus crash at 410 Kericho County on Wednesday. Like staring into a cruel mirror, the accident was quite the sting in a twisted story of death and grief. A man, his wife, their 2 children and a nephew were traveling on the ill-fated bus from Nairobi to Kakamega to attend a burial of a grandmother who passed on a few days ago.
Huyo Roston alikufa tu na nyumba yake yote, hakuna mmoja mwenye amepaki, alikufa tu yote.
Roadblocks mejaa barabarani zinatusaidia nini? Hao watu tunaishi kulipia hao ushuru, tunakatwa pesa, wanalipa polisi barabarani ati tuko na traffic ya kufanya kazi gani?
The situation is the same at Navangala village of Shinyalu constituency. Neighbors and friends trooped to the home of Mambele in silence, but were met with loud wails of relatives after learning the death of Kabel Mambele, his wife, and their 5-year-old son Zedekia Ambani. The 3 were among 56 people who died when the homeboys operated by Western Cross Road Sacco crashed yesterday. They were traveling to Kakamega to attend a relative's funeral scheduled for Saturday.
Watoto wote wanakufa, watoto 3. Mama na mzee yake na mtoto wake. Naonelea magari nyingi zikiwa kama zinasafiri mchana, sababu madereva maybe huwa wamechoka, hawezi wakaendesha gari mchana na usiku.
Mukingu village in Sabatia constituency is in deep mourning as well. The family of Masurunza is inconsolable after losing 3 members of the same family in the horrific crash. Masuranzu Buhashu and his 2 children were on the ill-fated bus. After learning about the accident, the family rushed to Kericho, but their fears were confirmed after visiting the morgue.
Msichana ambaye ni wa family akasema walipanda Homeboys. Sasa kwa wakati huu tumetuma watu Kericho waende wa verify mwili. At the same time tunang'ang'ana na kuzika sasa mzee ambaye ni ndugu yangu ambaye ni baba ya huyo au wamepatikana kwa hiyo ajali.
The families are appealing for help from the county government to transport bodies of their loved ones home for burial. Rozongoi, NTV.
Meanwhile, the Director of Public Prosecutions, Nurdin Haji, has directed Inspector General of Police Joseph Boynet to investigate the Londiani-Muhoroni road crash that claimed at least 56 lives. This even after the Interior and National Coordination CS Fred Matiang'i and his counterpart Transport and Infrastructure CS James Masharia were a no-show at a press conference on the way forward. And as NTV's Mel Miendo reports, it is yet another case of blame games as those responsible avoided taking responsibility.
The direction from the DPP is for the investigation to cover all agencies of government charged with the responsibility of ensuring safety on our roads, as well as the owners of the vehicle. But even with the DPP's directive, the country still has few answers to the persistent questions on the deaths on the roads. Cabinet Secretaries James Masharia and Fred Matiang'i, who are meant to address the media on the government's next course of action, were a no-show. The briefing was instead addressed by the NTSA and the Police Inspector General, whose answers to the latest tragedy were less than satisfactory. The Londiani-Muhoroni road has been described by witnesses and many road users as the expressway to death. Its steep, winding slopes have claimed many lives. Part of the road is also incomplete. It's also very poorly lit. Those who were aboard the Death Express that crashed at Londiani say the Homeboys bus had carried way more than its capacity. It also turns out that the bus was not licensed to travel at night.
It is true that this bus is licensed to carry 62. From the figures we have right now, it looks like this bus was carrying 71 people. That's how much we know.
However, this glaring defiance of rules could have been caught by police officers manning the many roadblocks along the Nairobi-Kakamega route. The police stationed on the roads should also check for speed, possession of a valid driver's license, and that vehicles on the road are roadworthy. But the man at the helm of the police service, Joseph Boynet, could ill answer questions as to where the enforcement of these rules failed.
Enforcing traffic law is a responsibility of the regional commander, with his county commanders, the OCPDs, as we still call them now, or the incoming sub-county commanders, and the officers in charge of police stations. So if there's, for instance, the case of Kericho on yesterday, it is a responsibility of the county commander Kericho.
In August 2018, police took charge of enforcement of road safety after President Uhuru Kenyatta ordered NTSA off the roads, and the authority handed over more than 165 million shillings worth of equipment. But the NTSA, that should also provide policy direction, licensed drivers, PSVs and SACCOs, had before been criticized for taking the easier, more visible route of cracking down on drunk drivers. NTSA, however, confirms the bus, registration number KBX092J, was not licensed to operate at night and was therefore operating illegally. There have also been reports that the vehicle's insurance had also expired.
The story where the issue of the insurance is coming, I don't know where it's coming from. The information we have is that the insurance of this vehicle is expiring of 19th of October. And we have that and the certificate actually is the police at the scene of crash.
In the meantime, Bernard Ishindu, the owner of Homeboys registered under Western Express SACCO, and a SACCO member, Cleophas Shimanyula, are the two individuals who have so far been held to account for the accident.
Laws of Kenya.
A court in Molo ordered they be remanded at the Londiani police station to allow the police more days to investigate their failures in preventing the accident. The Matatu Sacco and bus owner are responsible for ensuring staff competency amongst drivers and attendants, work shifts are balanced and licenses are valid.
Afrika Westland narudi wanapigiwa simu waende wachukue abiria wengine kwa gari nyingine. Walikuwa nusu ya hiyo basi. Wakaongeza hapa kwetu. Kuongeza congested. Hata kufika huko walikuwa wamesimama gari ikianguka abiria wengine.
It has unfortunately become the story of Kenya, a government promising action against rogue drivers in the fight against accidents that have so far killed more than 8,000 Kenyans. But just as soon as promises are made, they are broken. NTV's Silas Apollo reports on what has now become the circus of promises from a long-standing history of scripted responses to tragedy.
24 hours after the horrific accident at Londiani that killed 56 people and left 15 others fighting for their lives in various hospitals. This is the latest response to the Dawn tragedy, and from the new uniformed Promisai-in-Chief.
We have a plan, and I can confirm to you that there is indeed a plan. And you will see us, together with the regulator, the NTSA, do things completely different.
The police and the National Transport and Safety Authority yet again promising tougher measures that will ensure an end to the cases of death on the country's roads. A familiar script plucked from the government's playbook every time tragedy strikes and as the body count piles. President Uhuru Kenyatta has on countless occasions also issued stern warning against government agencies involved in ensuring road safety and road users who flouted road rules. During last year's Jamhuri Day celebrations, and after 40 people died in a road accident in Naivasha, the president gave a set of instructions to government agencies to ensure the country's roads are safer. But as soon as the stories fade away from the headlines and families have buried their loved ones, it is soon business as usual. Previous laws and regulations passed by the government to instill discipline on the roads have been unsuccessful. From the Michuki law that recommended installation of speed governors and seatbelts to the introduction of the smart driving license and even recommendations to suspend driving licenses of drivers who break the law, none seem to have yielded the desired outcomes. Pedestrians and other road users too have also had to share part of the blame for the number of deaths on the roads for flouting basic traffic laws. Take for instance, these pedestrians we filmed today crossing the Eastern Bypass, despite speeding trucks, lorries and public service vehicles cruising past. Just a few meters away is a footbridge that many of them just won't use. Despite efforts by the government to put up safer alternatives such as this footbridge here, most pedestrians still opt for alternatives, oblivious of the dangers that they expose themselves to from speeding motor vehicles. And as the numbers of those who've lost their lives on the roads rises, underscoring the country's traffic safety woes, the government only offers more words until the next disaster happens.
There are a couple of initiatives that we want to introduce that we believe will help us reduce fatalities on our roads, including ensuring that we have bus bodies that are of standards that we are required.
And at this time, the country has 56 bodies to show for these efforts. Silas Apollo, NTV.
Weighing in on the same, a section of senators have condemned what they term as ordinary reactionary measures taken by the government after lives are lost through preventable road accidents. The senators now want the specific people to be held responsible for the Londiani accident that left at least 56 passengers dead.
There is a family from Ingote in Kakamega that lost 6 members of the same family. There's a family from Shinyalu that lost 3 members of the same family, and there are many others.
How does a vehicle drive from Nairobi overloaded without insurance and all the other faults and passes more than 15 roadblocks up to Fort Tenan? And nobody has asked a question.
I think there should be a proper age limit for the drivers, and that age limit must be enforced. And not only that, the drivers who are driving public vehicles must be checked every 2 years.
Had an opportunity to travel this road several times. But one thing I noticed is a very well-built road. But what is unfortunate that it was never completed. It is an incomplete road. There are no signages. There are no marks on the roads.
I've not had another country like ours where people die in terms of 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 100. And it's not shocking news. It's just temporarily shocking news.
In some places like India, I remember when there was such an accident, the minister just had to go. He wanted to take responsibility. Just a one train crash. And there was no reason for blaming him. He was not there. He was not part of that corporation. But just to show, as a mark of respect for the dead and that the government had some accountability, he resigned. It happens in many jurisdictions. But in Kenya, nobody takes accountability.
Well, even as we call for people to be held responsible, let's hope indeed as media will keep an eye on this until someone is brought to book on the same. To another story that has been in the headlines for quite a time now, and one of the suspects arrested over the murder of businesswoman Monica Kimani has been set free by the courts. Brian Kasaine was released by the courts after the investigators failed to tie him to the murder directly after 10 days of investigations. Kasaine will be expected to report to the police once every week for the next 2 months as the police complete their probe into the matter. NTV's Brenda Wanga reports.
Brian Kasaine could not hide his relief as he made that walk to freedom early Thursday morning. Kasaine had been in police custody for close to 13 days since he was arrested in relation to the murder of Monica Nyawera Kimani. After the lapse of the 10 days granted by the courts to the Directorate of Criminal Investigations to prove their links to that crime, he was a free man, sort of.
So since the court has been informed that the investigations are not complete, and since the suspect will not be in custody, then I do not see any prejudice to the suspect if the police are given more time to complete investigations while he is out of custody.
The prosecution says it was not able to link the suspect to the murder directly, at least not in the last 10 days of investigations. They, however, say they are still carrying on with investigations into his other crime of allegedly bearing a firearm illegally.
The reality is that certificate is valid. He has been doing a lot of renewal every year, and he has been in possession of that gun from 2012. You see, up to now, which is well known within the knowledge of the police. So the allegation that were being brought that the firearm also has a connection with the Monica case, I think it's baseless, and they have confirmed themselves it's baseless. So we expect the same to be returned to my client.
Kasaine's release comes amid speculation that he has now been turned into a state witness in the murder case against the prime suspects Joseph Irungu and his co-accused and fiancé Jackie Maribe. Kasaine's legal team, however, says there have been no concrete deals yet.
Nowhere has my client accepted to be a state witness. Ourselves, we've not even given that credible information to anybody. You cannot compel a person to become a state witness, more so when he's going to testify against the people he knows, like his neighbors, you see. So it's something we have not agreed upon. There are negotiations with the prosecution, but we have not yet decided whether he will become a state witness or not.
Kasaine had been arrested after it was discovered that his gun had been used by Irungu to self-harm. Kasaine was also questioned about the movements of the suspect on the night after Monica Kimani's murder. He is said to have initially corroborated the suspect's tale of an assault by unknown people, but later recanted that statement. Joey and Maribe are set to take plea on Monday.
Well, Brian will be holding his breath, hoping that the next 2 months' investigations will completely exonerate him from any linkages to the murder of Monica Kimani. Brenda Wanga, NTV, Nairobi.
As Mr. Kasaine takes that sigh of relief, we'll give you a breather here on NTV Tonight. I'll be back shortly. Welcome back to NTV Tonight. President Uhuru Kenyatta, Deputy President William Ruto and ODM leader Raila Odinga this afternoon shared a platform for the first time since the push and pull over the proposed revision of the Constitution calmed. The three leaders masked their differences behind awkward hugs, handshakes and laughter, but their message of peace and reconciliation also reverberated across those who had gathered for the burial of Benga musician Joseph Kamaru. Ken Mijungu reports.
Such a gathering of the country's top leaders is reserved for such monumental events. The burial ceremony of Benga legend Joseph Kamaru brought three leaders ill at ease with each other under the same roof. Huge smiles, laughter, hugs and light moments characterized the interactions with each other amid cheers from the mourners. The leaders taking the stage to defend the 8-month-old handshake.
Twende mbele wa Kenya tushikane mikono. Akaleta yake na nikaleta yangu. Hiyo ndio handshake.
Wewe umeunganisha Kenya beyond Jubilee. Ndio ukaenda ukatafuta former prime minister, tumeshindana na yeye, ukasema yaliyopita si ndwele.
The men revealed little of the behind-the-scenes unease between them and the war of words between Deputy President and ODM leader Raila Odinga over whether the country should vote to change the constitution to, among other things, ensure inclusivity and cut the flub in public representation. The two leaders have stood on different sides of this divide.
Leo tunaongea lugha moja kama Wakenya ili tuweze kulenga mambo ya maendeleo ya Kenya.
Ya kuunganisha wa Kenya. Sio mambo ya 2022, hiyo itakuja na itapita. Hii ni Kenya milele na milele.
President Uhuru Kenyatta on this day playing in part the role of a mediator and the voice of reason amid the increasing political rhetoric.
Competitive politics must end, meaning animosity between people, between communities and between religions. We can compete on the basis of ideas.
The president asking the two leaders to shut the door on the past and forge a new partnership. Ken Mijungu, NTV.
May the soul of Kamaru rest in peace and power, as people say nowadays. And something else that came from that meeting, President Uhuru Kenyatta has urged the Nairobi and Murang'a county governments to end their squabbles and work together in ensuring the electorate is supplied with water. The president pledged to address the issues affecting Murang'a in regards to water provision after Governor Mwangi wa Iria intimated that 70% of the Murang'a population have no access to clean water. Murang'a County wants its neighbor, Nairobi, to pay for the water it gets from the Murang'a-based Ndakaine Dam.
Mimi sipigi dulu bila sababu yoyote. 30% of my people are short of water. Na kwa sababu rais na naibu wake wako hapa, mimi namuuliza kama vile mtoto anaitishanga baba yake maji kidogo tu, tafadhali tuwei mai.
Maji ni uhai, maji ni ya Mwenyezi Mungu. Mabishano tunabishania nini? Lazima tuhakikishe ya kwamba watu wa Murang'a wapate maji, watu wa Nairobi wapate maji, kila mtu apate maji.
Now, retrogressive cultural practices still thrive in nomadic communities where people are yet to fully embrace the rights of women and education for girls. But one man in Wamba, Samburu County is going against the grain. Patrick Lembwakita, an assistant chief, I should say, has been branded as the enemy of the Samburu culture for his relentless efforts to protect and fight for women and girls in his community. NTV's Rose Wangoi with that story.
Hakuna msichana anapashwa tohara bara ilimtoa dei. Simunasikia hiyo. Hiyo tutachukua hatua kabisa vile niliambia nyinyi mbele. Na hata tungana pale. Kutoka mama haimili wasasi hiyo mtoto na yule ambaye anafanya hivyo. Na hata inaibu watu.
Patrick is one of a kind. The only man in Wamba, Samburu County, was gone against tradition and said no to retrogressive cultural practices.
Inadhulumu mtoto msichana haki zake, haina maana nyingine yote bali ni madhara ya kiafya kabisa.
He says his humble background and his first-hand experience with poverty helps him to easily identify with the needs of the residents here.
Even our culture has taken us actually back to poverty again because of the, poor or bad cultural practices that we are still embarking, like still keeping the children at home, not going to school, and then that one will not enhance any improvement in poverty alleviation.
During his tenure of 10 years as an assistant chief, Patrick has learned that to bring change, you must find your voice and have the courage to speak the truth. He has devoted his life to improving the position and perception of women and girls in his society, challenging women to take up leadership roles.
As a leader, I am expected to pose a change to my community. Some change is being felt here in Wamba location because of our seriousness and continuity of this awareness campaigns. The same is required in the interior of the Samburu community. I have 12 villages in my sub-location, and every village have a 9-member committee, of which 1/3 consists of women. So we are trying to promote women leadership from the grassroots, from the sub-locational level and to the locational level.
His biggest hurdle has been fighting harmful practices like female genital mutilation, beading and early marriage, which are still rampant here. We came across 5 girls who fled their homes and sought refuge in his office. Each had a sad tale to tell. The assistant chief says hardly a week passes without a distress call. To date, he has rescued over 50 girls from early marriage and made sure they have resumed studies. But there are challenges.
The government has been channeling its funds through the various, recognized institutions, but they are always not enough.
According to Patrick, retrogressive cultural practices, the biggest enemy to the girl child here, has not been fully addressed by the current leaders.
I've heard or seen none of them trying to advocate the rights of children, and especially the girl child. Most of them, especially the elected leaders, they fear missing or not getting the votes of the majority people who are still holding on to their culture. You are leading the people to nowhere. If you are a leader and then you fear telling them that we don't want FGM, any elected women leader, we are expecting them to spearhead the change.
Patrick is the perfect example of a community leader, but his stand, bold attitude and quest to fight for the rights of women and girls has not impressed some in his community.
This is going against Samburu culture. I'm not discouraged by those kind of threats. Whenever I succeed slightly in one of those areas, I'm encouraged even more.
Poverty and deeply rooted cultural practices are still barriers to protecting the rights of women and children. These are key issues community leaders like Patrick want government to address in order to improve the welfare of the marginalized communities and create an inclusive and accessible society for all. Rose Wangoi, NTV, Wamba, Samburu County.
And thanks to Rosie, who has shared that story, and of course a camera person who accompanied her to Samburu, and Assistant Chief Patrick Lembwakita on behalf of the girl child, especially on this International Day of the Girl Child, which was also marked in Parliament, where young Mary Georgia Onyango read a petition to members of Parliament. The petition, read on behalf of students drawn from various schools, cited the numerous challenges affecting girls and the challenges in enabling them to maximize their potential. The petition called for Parliament to put in place legislation urging the national government to develop a comprehensive policy that can be used to identify, prevent and respond to gender-based violence and protection of children's rights. Now, MPs in the House supported it and will have it discussed by the relevant committee. On that point, we take a break. We'll be back with business and, of course, Dan Mwangi will be driving that agenda. Stay with us.
association with Safaricom Business.
Good evening, and let's get down to business. My name is Dan Mwangi. Now, Kenya's economic growth momentum is expected to rebound in 2018 to 5.7%, representing an upswing from the 4.9% registered in the year 2017. According to the World Bank Economic Update for 2018, this optimistic outlook is pegged on improvement in the agriculture sector, strong inflows from tourism revenue, and subdued political risk compared to 2017. These bright spots notwithstanding, there is need for cautious optimism.
Ideally, an economy would bank on a vibrant private sector activity to offset a potential drag from tightened spending by the government. In Kenya's case, however, a slowdown in private sector activity derails the likelihood that this could happen. Data from the central bank suggests the economy has suffered lost momentum in growth of credit uptake by the private sector, with indication of fragile recovery over the last 9 months. This signals weakened potential by the private sector players to provide a prop for the economy as the government trims expenditure.
Macroeconomic environment remains broadly stable, with inflation contained within the government target of about 5 plus 2.5%. This is mainly due to low food prices, but also because of the base effect. But at the same time, the stable exchange rate has provided a nominal anchor to inflation expectation. Nonetheless, the recent uptick in oil prices, as well as removal of food subsidies and introduction of several fiscal measures, there is a likelihood that there is going to be a gradual pickup of inflation going forward.
Beyond sluggish private sector activity, the economy has to confront the headache of a steady decline in its tax revenue to GDP ratio, a disturbing indicator that the country's tax revenue mobilization efforts are failing to keep pace with the economy's growth rate. This presents a key challenge for the country, especially as its debt management comes under sharp focus and tightening global monetary conditions render the international market less attractive for borrowing.
The good news is that the overall debt to GDP has moderated from about 57.5 to about 57% currently. This is data as of June 2018. Nevertheless, the mix between external and domestic debt stands at about 51 to 49%, which still exposes the country to development in international and the global financial markets.
The World Bank Economic Update for 2018 tables a fairly optimistic outlook for the Kenyan economy, projecting GDP growth at 5.7% in 2018. On one account, however, it raises serious questions: fiscal consolidation. It might be necessary, but the approach being taken is not sufficient to support economic growth. Julian Samboko, NTV.
The cost of maize production in the country has declined by an average of 16.5% from last year as the market responds to improved weather conditions and reduced pest and disease incidences. However, the entry of cheap imports and emergence of deadly pests such as the fall armyworm remain major threats to local production of the staple in the near future. Victor Kiprop has more.
According to a study by the Tegemeo Institute of Agricultural Policy, the cost of production of the country's most important cereal currently stands at 1,781 shillings per 90-kilogram bag for large-scale farmers and 85 shillings more for small-scale farmers. This cost, however, rises by a further 16.5% and 11% respectively if the government does not subsidize the cost of fertilizer.
We are talking about now an average cost of about 1,700 shillings to produce a 90 kg bag, which is a big improvement from last year.
Small-scale farmers in Nakuru enjoy a relatively lower cost of production than those in the country's food baskets of Trans Nzoia and Uasin Gishu. The findings of the report, however, conflict with figures provided by farmers from these regions.
To produce one bag of 90 kg costs a farmer 2,700.
Maize production in Kenya declined by 13% to 32 million bags in 2017 due to poor weather conditions and the devastating attack by the fall armyworm that has already been reported in 43 counties. This year, the government estimates that the overall impact of the pest on maize production could drop by 15%, helping improve total maize production to 46 million bags.
Last year, 2017, we estimated 250,000 hectares of maize was infested, and we estimated a loss of about 20%. That is in yield. That's about 3 million bags of maize, and with an estimated value of 3 billion. This year, the situation has been better. We have estimated a yield loss of 5%.
The fall armyworm was first reported in Africa in January 2016 and has already spread to about 38 of the 54 African countries, with the Center for Agriculture and Biosciences International estimating that improper management of the pest could cost 10 of the continent's maize-producing economies between $2.2 billion and $5.5 billion every year. Victor Kiprop, NTV Business, Nairobi.
The Cabinet has approved the medium-term budget for the 2019-2020 financial year in a meeting held at State House, Nairobi, earlier today and chaired by President Uhuru Kenyatta. The meeting also resolved to set up an Eastern African Regional Roads Authorities Forum, which will provide a platform for the harmonization of road infrastructure in East Africa, especially transnational. This will include matters of design, standards of the roads, as well as the costings. The forum will bring together agencies responsible for the implementation and management of road infrastructure in the regions such as Kenha, Kura, Kera, Kenya Road Board, Uganda National Roads Authority, and Tanzania National Roads Agency. The Kenya Revenue Authority is facing pressure from East African traders operating at the port of Mombasa to extend its electronic revenue system to them in a bid to hasten cargo clearance. The traders, comprising of clearing and forwarding agents, recently launched a complaint to the East Africa Council of Ministers, accusing the authority of introducing new procedures that are slowing movement of goods and thus impeding on trade. Now, despite other East African countries opening up their systems to allow free trade, KRA stipulates that clearing agents can only gain access to the taxman's e-platform if they are registered as domestic operators. Global agricultural company Bayer has assured the staff who work for Monsanto in Kenya that they will not lose their jobs as the two companies merge. In August this year, Bayer completed the $66 billion takeover of Monsanto and is in the process of integrating operations in all offices around the world. While Bayer admits that the merger brings on board additional staff, it maintains that none of them will be let go since the core business of both companies are different. It is still not clear whether the Monsanto staff will be relocated to the Bayer offices. The global agriculture industry has seen a lot of mergers and acquisitions in the last few years, including DuPont and Chemchina-Syngenta deals that have raised concerns among critics that they will create monopolies and ultimately increase the prices of seeds by up to 20%.
So the very few seed businesses that Bayer had, we divested them. So basically what you have is a very clean, and complementary company. And that's what is exciting, because by having such a complementarity, when we talk about synergies, it's about synergies to be able to deliver innovation and grow our business, not synergies about cutting costs like other competitors have been doing.
It's time for the synergy between myself and my house. I'm done. Good night.
NTV Business News in association with Safaricom Business.
Let's get your
Welcome back. Education Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohammed says the government is committed to enhancing technical education. The CS says more than 100 million shillings has been allocated towards this end. She spoke during a graduation ceremony for more than 3,000 students of the Nairobi Technical Training Institute. Amina Mohammed emphasized on the provision of more creative and innovative approaches to development.
Thank you so much, my colleagues. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
So the ministry has allocated 120 million Kenya shillings. And we hope that this will enable increased production and training and provide a facility that's a center of excellence in mechanical engineering and skills development in our region, not just in our country, but in our whole region.
Well, here's the out-of-the-ordinary response from a leader to a protest. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed engaged soldiers who had marched to his office in protest.
time for What's on Sports. Watson Karuma. The government, through the Ministry of Sports, has announced free entry to Sunday's 2019 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier between Harambee Stars and Ethiopia at the Kasarani Stadium. This follows Wednesday's 0-0 draw between the two sides in a match hosted at a full-to-capacity Bahir Dar Stadium. The stalemate propelled Kenya to the top of Group F, and a win on Sunday will assure them a slot in the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations in Cameroon, depending on the outcome of the CAF FIFA ruling on the suspended Sierra Leone. The team arrived in the country this evening, and with the squad suffering no injuries in Wednesday's game, any changes made to the squad by coach Sebastian Minye for Sunday's game will be tactical.
Firstly, I'm very proud about my players because we played in a full stadium, 60,000 people. It was an amazing atmosphere, and it was difficult to have a result.
I have to congratulate all the team because the character of the players and the mentality of the players, they are really strong. Because with that crowd, managing the game like that is not easy. Because it was a tough game. The crowd, they were always behind them from the first minute, but the players showed that they are matured and they give their best.
Mechi ngumu ukiangalia tuko nyumbani na pia mashabiki wetu watakuwa pale kutusaidia, na Ethiopia pia vile watahitaji hizo pointi, na itakuwa ni mechi ngumu kwa maana yake pia sisi naye tutakuwa home, tutakuwa pia na ile pressure ya kutaka kushinda hiyo mechi, lakini sisi tutaendea ushindi na inshallah ikipatikana itakuwa vizuri, ila lakini tunaomba tu tusipoteze mechi.
It's a good thing the president spoke to the minister earlier today, and the president gave a directive today that we give the game for free to the fans, and we're going to do exactly that. I've received the communication, it's a directive, we're going to do that. It will be free for fans except in special areas that they're not supposed to enter, but otherwise it will be free for fans. We will give a proper communique on Saturday on how we'll operate the day, because it's easy to say it's free, but what if we are 150,000 of us? What are we going to do? There are many other things now we have to put in place.
Now, 2017 Athens Marathon winner Samuel Kalele has been banned for 4 years after testing positive for the blood booster EPO. According to the Athletics Integrity Unit, the Kenyan's urine sample was collected after the Rotterdam Marathon in April, and the 23-year-old was provisionally suspended on the 4th of June by the AIU, which is an independent agency of World Athletics ruling body IAAF. The AIU said that all of Kalele's results since that event in the Netherlands will now stand disqualified. (2017) Hong Kong Marathon runner-up Julius Kipyego Keter and Edinburgh Marathon champion Julius Kiplagat Korir have confirmed participation in the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon to be held on the 28th of this month in Nairobi. The event has received a boost from 8 firms which have pledged over 100 million Kenya shillings. Title sponsors Standard Chartered have invested about 100 million Kenya shillings, and all the funds raised through registration for the marathon are channeled towards the Seeing is Believing initiative. 10,000 participants have so far registered. Now, the rugby fraternity is mourning the death of former top referee Osborne Bulemi, who passed away on Wednesday. Bulemi started out as a player before switching to officiating. The veteran referee officiated in high-profile matches, including the Kenya Harlequin versus Impala Kenya Cup final of August 1999. Bulemi received a lifetime honorary award during a Kenya Rugby Referee Society gala in July of 2016. May Bulemi's soul rest in peace. Now, PSG forward Kylian Mbappe has earned an appearance yourself on a Times magazine cover, maybe?
I was winning hearts, Watson. I was winning hearts. But I was making my way to NTV, which not too long after gave me an opportunity. And yes, I'm here. I'm not too sure I make as much money as Mbappe does, but hey, everyone with their own path. Thank you, Watson, for the support, and thank you to the team that made this possible. Thank you to Raphael for the sign language interpretation, and Arnold, who will feel left out if he's not mentioned, our director. My name is Mark Masai.